Good morning. It is March the 9th, 2026, and straight from the highly caffeinated studio, this is According to Willie B. And yes, I'm your host. So let's get into it. Let's talk about, I just got back today, actually about an hour ago, and was trying to get into the studio to knock out this podcast. So this episode will talk about the trip I just came back from in Texas, and I'm going to title it Texas on a Plate, because that's a lot of what it was trying to get some Culinary Highway episodes filmed, and I ran into more phenomenal food than I ever expected. I knew there was some because I knew some of the places I was going. So let's talk about some of these places I found. So first of all, you ever take a trip that reminds you exactly who you are? Not the kind with a beach chair and an umbrella drink. I mean the kind where every meal, every smell coming out of a kitchen door feels like a memory you didn't realize you missed. Now, we've been in North Carolina for 3 years, and I was born and raised in Texas, so you know as well as anybody that ever listens to this podcast one time that I do miss the food from home. So this was the kind of trip it was. It was that epic food trip, and I never saw it coming. Houston, Katy, the Woodlands, Sealy. I covered it all, and all in one day. So let's talk about some of the places I hit, because if you go to Texas, or if you're in Texas and you're looking for something to go eat and something that is worth the drive, you're going to want to hear this. So we flew in on Wednesday, the 4th. And when you fly in, we had gotten up at 3 a.m. for that flight, which is ridiculous. But nevertheless, we did it because we were excited about the trip. So by the time we got our luggage and got our rental car and got on the road, guess what time it is? It is time for lunch. And we're in Texas, and I thought to myself, I want some seafood, because, Texas is right beside Louisiana, and it's on the coast. So you got to have some seafood. And I knew right where to go. Downtown Houston on Peace Street, Pease, you will find a place that has been there since time began. And I have been eating here for years. I know the owner, and he still is there at the restaurant every single day, making sure that things are done correctly. He does things from scratch. He does things the hard way. But his catfish is above and beyond any catfish I have ever eaten in my life, except for one, and that would be the catfish that we served at Bryce's Landing when we had that restaurant. But he does his catfish just like we did in cornmeal. It's not over-seasoned. It's crispy. It's flaky. It's just good for the soul. But let me tell you something else. Because it's catfish, or because it's Cajun food, he also has gumbo. And I know for a fact, I have stood in the kitchen and watched. They make the roux from scratch. So that gumbo starts with a base that is just unlike anything you've ever smelled. And there is so much shrimp in that gumbo. I actually teased and I said, there's so much shrimp in this gumbo. I feel like I probably should go get a shrimper's license because it was just ridiculous. But the name of the place is Zydeco, Zydeco. And so naturally, that is a true Cajun name for a restaurant. So Zydeco Cajun Restaurant, and it is absolutely worth the drive. It's something that I promise you'll go there and you'll say, once again, Will was right, because I'm telling you, this place is just absolutely epic. My wife had the crawfish etouffee. That's not really my thing. I've never been a big fan of crawfish. I know I'm from Texas and that should be illegal, but, it is what it is. I have my I have my taste buds, and my taste buds just don't go to crawfish. Now, if you were to make some alligator etouffee, I would stand in line for it. But it was exactly like I remembered it, and that's why I'm saying, do you ever have a trip where the meal reminds you of home? And that's exactly what Zydeco did. Once I had my plate of fish and shrimp and that bowl of gumbo, I felt like I was home. I knew, when you go home, if you go off to college or you move off later in life and you go back home and mama cooks a meal that was one of your favorites, that's the first thing that communicates to you is that food, because we are a animal of, we communicate through food. I was trying to put that together where it made sense, but as a foodie, it makes sense to me. But like I said, if you're anywhere around Houston and you've never been to Zydeco, definitely go check it out. And it is family owned, family run. And when you go there, make sure that you tell Marty that I said hello and that I sent you over there. And I promise you, he'll take good care of you. There will be an episode on Culinary Highway on Zydeco, because I filmed an entire episode and I could not wait to go film. And when I told Marty, he was excited, but I told him, I said, I really just came for the catfish. The filming an episode is just a bonus. So I came for my own selfish reasons, if you will. But, definitely check it out. It's one of the best places that you will get fish, shrimp, gumbo, etouffee, whatever the case may be. And it's made from scratch. He hasn't changed in all these years. He still hasn't changed the way he does things. So, we had gotten up at 3 a.m., so we're like, okay, our bellies are full. We are blissfully satisfied on full bellies, and now we're tired, and now we just need a bed and lights out. And that's exactly what we did. Made it to the hotel and lights out to get some rest, catch up, because we had a full weekend ahead of us. So the next day, my wife had to work. This is on Thursday the 5th. She had to work because it was part work trip, part family trip, part Culinary Highway. So, we had a lot going on. So while she was at work, I dropped her off at 8 a.m., I went out because I was on a mission. I wanted to try to film at least 4 episodes that day while she was working. And I knew 3 of the places I wanted to go. And I was going to try to, they were kind of spread out, but I thought, I think I can make it. I knew Texas, it's my homeland. I think I can make it work. But I needed a place for breakfast. Now, I have told you guys, I don't know how many times, you cannot wow me at breakfast. Now, I've done some episodes of Culinary Highway on some breakfast places, and they're really good. I mean, I've had some really great pancakes. I've had some really great breakfasts, and I support those places. But when I talk about a wow factor to me is you're going to wow me all the way from the parking lot to the final cash transaction at the register. When you do breakfast, eggs are eggs, bacon is bacon, etc., etc. You may have better pancakes than somebody else. You may have, and that's all fine and well. But to get me to say that was a wow experience, that is really tough, because I am really picky when I hand out a wow experience. I stand corrected. I found a place that was called Harvest Kitchen and Bakery. And I thought, okay, so it's like a kitchen, it's like a little cafe, and, I should be able to get a decent breakfast there. I wasn't looking for a huge breakfast because I knew what I had ahead of me for the rest of the day. Barbecue, chicken fried steak, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought, well, if I could keep breakfast light. That plan, ladies and gentlemen, went out the proverbial window. No, not the proverbial window. It just went out the window. When I found this place and I pulled up into the parking lot, I was like, this is different. It was in a strip mall, but there was a mural painted on the outside of the building. And when I pulled up in the parking spot, if I felt welcomed already, and I hadn't even gotten out of the car. When I walked in, a hostess greeted me and kind of explained how things work. And she assigned me a table and directed me down this path to go to the register, where I would look through the menu on my way down and pick out my food and then order with the lady at the register. The lady at the register wasn't just someone running a cash register. She knew that menu. She answered every question that I could throw at her. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I've actually been greeted 3 times and I haven't even made it to the table. So they get your name, they assign you a table. After I picked out my food, which I went with chicken and waffles, and it really looked good. There was a picture on the menu and it really looked good. So I thought, okay, this would be a solid choice. As I went to the area of the dining room where my table was, I was greeted by the waitress by name. She said, "Will, your table is right over here." Wow, I didn't see that coming. So here I am, I'm greeted again, and I haven't even made it to the table. When I got to my table, there was a little blackboard sign on the table with a heart drawn on there and my name. And then there was another placard beside it said, "This is more than breakfast. This is belonging." I was like, this is really cool. They are making this really personal. I like this. If the food is half as good as the interpretation that I've received so far, this is going to be a great meal. So this restaurant, this Harvest Kitchen and Bakery, is owned and operated by an executive chef. And she was absolutely attentive in every square inch of the restaurant. When she not only just made it to every table, she came to my table, and of course she saw the filming equipment, and so we're having a conversation about that. She asked me what I ordered, and I said, I went with the chicken and waffles. I can't go wrong. She said, "Well, did you get eggs?" And I'm thinking, I didn't, because I knew how much more food I was going to have to endure over the next rest of the day. And I said, well, I was just trying to, keep it to a certain. She said, "Nope, you have to have the eggs." She said, because when you get your chicken and waffles, you're going to want to take a bite of the eggs with a bite of the chicken. She said, it's a whole new experience. I'm not going to argue with a chef. I've known too many chefs in my life. When they brought me the chicken and waffles, and they brought the eggs that she requested with 2 strips of bacon on the side of that, so it was unlike anything I had seen. The waffle, I could tell just by looking that waffle was going to be different than anything I had ever had. The chicken, the way it was breaded, the aroma coming from that plate, I knew, as a foodie, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was going to be dancing on the table, because this was that kind of food. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, when I took a bite of that chicken, I could not even begin to pick out the different spices that made up that savory flavor. Every spice that was in that breading was so well married together that no spice, not one single component, stood out above the rest. That is the sign of a true chef, when they can take multiple ingredients, combine them together, and you can't pick out one over the other because one doesn't overpower the other. I tasted it with the eggs, again, blown away. I tasted the waffle. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. I've had a lot of waffles in my 60 years. This waffle was unlike anything I had ever tasted. So she came back, the chef came back to the table, and I asked her, I said, "Okay, I have to know. This waffle is unlike any waffle I have ever tasted. She said, cookie butter. I said, cookie butter? And she said, yes. She said, it is a true Belgian recipe for a Belgian waffle, and we use cookie butter. That's the difference. I was just blown away. I'd never tasted anything like this in my life. This was beginning to be more than a meal. This was just a foodie experience that I cannot describe. And then you put all the service, the presentation, the atmosphere, the vibe, everything just came together, and it was like just an unreal. It was almost like an out of body experience. I don't know what else to say, but it was just that overwhelming that I just was enamored. As I completed my meal, and yes, I ate every bit of it, I was blissfully full. My soul was satisfied. And I got to tell you, it was a wow experience, from the parking lot to the inside of the restaurant to the way that their system on how they deliver. Let me tell you something. Have you ever watched wait staff walk through a dining room with plates on their arms? And it's like a juggling act. These food runners that she had, they carried 3 plates at a time. One on the forearm, one in the hand, and one held high on the other hand. And they walked through the dining room like it was a synchronized ballet. I've never seen anything like it. I'm telling you, there was no detail in that restaurant that had gone left unnoticed. I've been, I don't know how many restaurants I have eaten in my life, and I've eaten in some of the most prestigious restaurants in the world. And this was breakfast, and it was just unreal. I'm still, as I'm talking about it, I get goosebumps. I'm not even kidding. It was that over the top good. It was a true wow experience. It was a legendary breakfast, and I hope that you will not miss that episode of Culinary Highway, because you're going to see exactly what I'm describing to you. I got to tell you, I love it when I see a restaurant that understands food, that understands what it's about. It's not just to feed somebody. If I just want to eat something, or if I just want to get full, if I want to satisfy a hunger craving, that's easy. But when you run a restaurant and you can take care of here's the thing. I've seen restaurants where they had a list to provide a wow experience, and they check the boxes, okay? They just go down the list and check the boxes. This didn't just check the boxes. It was like she had this iron rubber stamp, and she stamped every single box on that list and basically stamped it well done. My hat is off to her and the success that she has built. Please, I implore you, do not miss that episode. Oh, but wait, there's more. So, I have to go and find a second location. Yes. So, if you follow along here, we're still on March the 5th. We're still in the same day. And I've had a big breakfast. And wow. So I've got to have meal number 2. Now, this one, I already knew where I was going, because I've been going to this next place for over 20 years. Well over 20 years. And that is called Hinz's Barbecue in Sealy, Texas. And that's spelled Hinzes, barbecue in Sealy. You can't miss them. They got a big sign right there off the freeway, off Interstate 10. Can't miss them. They do catering. They do every kind of barbecue. Here's the thing. They're also cattle ranchers. So how do you not know how to cook a cow if you're not raising them? Because they do both. They do catering. So anything that revolves around cattle, they've got it down to an art. Now, the thing that impresses me, I think one of the things that impresses me the most about Hens's Barbecue, not only because it's family and they're in there all the time, and I was actually blessed to be able to sit down and have a good conversation with them and catch up over time. Hadn't seen them in quite some time, and they're just really great people, and you can't go wrong. You got good cattle ranchers and you got good people, and they're running a restaurant. And on top of that, I mean, how can you go wrong? And they know barbecue. The thing that impresses me is how consistent they are. And if you know barbecue, consistency is everything. Family owned, family run, real Texas tradition. Now let's talk about it. Brisket, sausage, ribs, all done right. Here's the thing people forget about barbecue. The sides tell the story as well. Beans, potato salad, bread baked in house. And so help me, if you go and you leave without trying the pecan pie, well, I just don't know if we can be friends, because that would be criminal, let me tell you. And they make the pecan pie in-house. They have all these years. I would like to know how many pecan pies they've made over the years, because, wow. I mean, it's got to be a lot. But the barbecue, they do, like I said, they do catering. Their bun has always been bigger than any barbecue sandwich I've ever gotten anywhere. And one of the things I really like is that, you know me, and I like sauce. I love sauce. I want sauce to dip something in. I want sauce poured over it. When it comes to gravy, smother it and cover it. But they have their barbecue sauce, which they make from scratch. They have their barbecue sauce in this heated kettle. So not only do I get my barbecue sandwich, because I love chopped barbecue. Now, they've got sliced beef and they got all, your traditional. But for their chopped beef has always been my favorite. It's always been my go-to. And I took that barbecue sandwich and I opened up that lid, or the top bun, whichever you want to call it. And I walked up to that kettle and I got me a little cup and I got me that hot barbecue sauce. And I just drenched that sandwich. When I put that amount of barbecue sauce on a sandwich, you can either drink it or eat it. It's your choice. But it is just absolutely phenomenal. And I didn't care who watched. I enjoyed that sandwich. And yes, that will also be an episode coming up in the next week or two on Culinary Highway. On this Texas trip alone, before I get into the next restaurant, on this Texas trip alone, I would ask you or suggest to you, go to Culinary Highway on YouTube and subscribe. It's free. Just click the subscribe button for one simple reason. The next 5 episodes that are coming out are absolutely going to blow your mind. And if you haven't seen the last 3 or 4 episodes that I've done, or even past that, you're in for a treat. And I promise you, some of the best content you've seen is coming up. So, and I finished, and I wasn't able to finish the whole sandwich. I mean, I just had literally 42 minutes earlier finished that breakfast. Luckily, I was able to sit and visit with the Henses for a little bit, so it gave me about 45 minutes before I had to eat another meal. But I tackled part of it because I knew that I still had another meal coming up 30 minutes down the road. Now, this next place, again, I know the people very well. Chef Mary Helen and her husband Charlie and her son Nate, and it's a family run ordeal. And I'm telling you, it is another chef driven restaurant. Chef Mary Helen will blow your mind on some of the things that come out of that kitchen. She has crab cakes, okay? And I told her while I was there, I said, Miss Mary Helen, I said, I figured out something about your crab cakes because she makes a remoulade sauce, but has a little bit of special twist that she threw in. It's her own recipe. I said, I realized why your remoulade sauce is so good with those crab cakes. The crab, because there's a lot of crab in those crab cakes, don't kid yourself. And all those crabs in that crab cake, they have done a secret handshake with that remoulade sauce of yours, and that's what brings it all together. And of course, she had a good laugh out of that, but I'm telling you, it's a chef-driven menu, and it's comfort food meets chef, and it's one of the most satisfying menus I think I have seen in a long time, strictly because of that. Everything is made in-house. She does it from scratch. She does it the hard way. So if you see that you might drive by and she's not open, you better check the website and see what her hours are and what days, because you don't want to drive because it's off the beaten path. And again, there will be a culinary episode on this one, but I'm telling you. So I had to make a decision. Have you ever thought about someone who is maybe in prison or whatever the case may be, and they're given one final meal for their life? Like, this is your final meal. What do you think you would have if you said, well, this is my final meal? This would be the last thing I ever eat. What would you pick? Well, it was kind of that way for me because it's been a year since I've been to Texas. So who knows when I'll get back to Texas again. And I was faced with a decision. What's going to be my final meal here? Not that I'll be going back, so it's not the final meal, but it's final for this trip. I love the crab cakes. I love the burgers. Her burgers, she makes the patties are made by hand, and they're huge, and it's just a massive burger, and it used so much flavor, it's unreal. Chicken fried steak. I mean, the list just goes on. The onion rings. I mean, come on. But she has another, what I told you, a chef-driven Southern menu. Now, this next item that I'm going to tell you, this is what I ordered. This is what it's called in Texas. It is a chicken fried ribeye. Now, if you're from most parts of the country, you'll understand what I mean by chicken fried. For those of you that are in North Carolina or other parts of the country, it is also referred to as country fried. Same thing. It's a flour breading that they use like on chicken, and that's why we always call it chicken fried. It's like frying chicken, but this is a ribeye steak, not ground up, a whole ribeye, breaded and deep fried with a side of her fresh mashed potatoes, and then smothered and covered in some of the creamiest gravy you've ever put in your mouth. Let me tell you, that ribeye was the size, it needed a map. To be all honest, it needed a flipping map because that thing was so big. It covered the plate. And not to mention that massive scoop of mashed potatoes and all the gravy that you could just basically swim in and do the backstroke. I mean, come on. This is Texas. Steak, breaded, fried, covered and smothered. I mean, what don't you get? I mean, this is comfort food at championship level. Oh, I'm telling you, I can still taste it. I can sit and close my eyes and taste that plate. Okay. All right. So let's move on here because I'm getting long-winded. So when I picked up my wife from her work project she had to do, she goes, "I'm hungry." You can imagine the look on my face. She's hungry. Do you think I'm hungry? No, not even in the least. Not even, haven't even, food hadn't crossed my mind. I've been food comaed all day long. But, she needed dinner. And yes, so that meant we needed dinner. And, well, so, we went and got dinner. Now, when you're in Texas for 2 days, you've got one of the things you have to have besides barbecue, comfort food, et cetera, you got to have fajitas. And because Mexican food in Texas is unlike Mexican food anywhere else, it is in a class all by itself. So we were staying in the Woodlands, and the Woodlands has, if you're not familiar, if there's not a single restaurant that they don't have, and probably have 2 or 3 of them. But I was again looking for, I'm like, okay, if I have to eat another meal, I need it to be locally owned and local. I wanted local. I found it. Now, the reason I tell you this is because we remembered having a meal back in Houston a couple of years ago, and we couldn't remember where it was. We just remembered the name of the restaurant, and it was called Spanish Flowers. And we were thinking, I think it's right in here. So she Googles it and finds it, and she goes, well, it shows it's right up here. So we put it in the Google Maps, and there we went. But I knew when I drove up, I'm like, this is not the same location. Well, voila, they now have 2 locations. They have one in the Heights, which is the original location we went to, and then this one. The one in the Woodlands is a little more upscale. It's very nice. It's right there by the Woodland Mall. After you get miserably full, you just walk over to the mall and walk it off. Then you could go back for another meal. Let me tell you something. When the chips and salsa hit the table in Texas, that is the signal of you are about to be in a food coma like no other. So I ordered the fajitas because I had to have fajitas, just like I had to have the barbecue. I had to have the catfish. You get the gist of this. They didn't just bring fajitas to the table. They were still sizzling. They set them on fire. They were tender. They were perfectly seasoned. The flour tortillas that came with it, the charro beans. I mean, I can just go on and on and on. Again, why you should not miss these episodes coming up on Culinary Highway. I kid you not. By the end of the meal, you'd think that we've had enough, but they had brought out a couple of their signature drinks, and that were because of the rodeo being in town. If you've never associated Houston with anything, most people associate Houston with the Houston Rodeo. And so the drinks were impressive. They were so impressive, I actually felt like I needed a passport just to sample them. But we met the whole management staff, the service. Again, here I am again. And the same day, I felt like a time traveler because I felt like I had just taken this massive food tour across Texas. And yet when I looked at my watch, it was still in the same day. And of course, my stomach said, no, trust me, you've been there, done that today. We're well aware. But it was so impressive to have that many great meals in one day. So many wow experiences, because this place, Spanish Flowers in the Woodlands, you want a wow experience? It's worth the drive. Trust me. Cochrane Grill, worth the drive. Hens's Barbecue, worth the drive. Everything that I've told you about tonight is worth the drive. I don't care where you are, especially in Texas. Drive and go check these places out and tell them that I sent you, because they're going to know. They're going to be like, all right, we got you. They're going to take care of you. So To have that many great meals in one day, I began to reflect at the end of that meal. And I thought, am I really this good at picking out good food, or did I just get lucky? No, I'm not saying that I'm superstar at picking out food, but as a foodie, I think I did okay that day. But let me tell you something. We had as if it wasn't bad enough, if we weren't already full enough, our waiter suggested, you got to try the flaming cheesecake. And I thought my whole stomach and brain both were going to shut down. I'm like, sure, bring it on. And they brought out this massive iceberg looking piece of cheesecake. The thing was massive, and they set it on fire. I mean, people say, oh, that place is epic. That place is fire. I guess that place truly was fire, because my fajitas were on fire. My cheesecake was on fire. And now my brain was on fire because it was like no more food today. But Friday morning came fast. And it was time to pack up the camera gear. And because I still have family in Texas, it was time to put away the camera gear and Culinary Highway and social media and spend some time with family. These are the trips that I tell you about. You don't have to go across the globe to make memories that you will never forget, ever. Because after getting to spend time with family, spend time reuniting with friends, and over all this amazing food and these amazing restaurants and the amazing restaurant owners, after all of that, I thought about this. Food is more than food. It's memory, it's culture, it's family. And sometimes it's how a place reminds you of who you are. As the plane lifted off, I realized something else. The best souvenirs from travel are the meals that you remember. The laughter around the table, the flavors that stay with you. Long after the plate is empty, remember this. Lights, camera, go travel, and I'll see you on the road. Remember, caffeinate and conquer, and I'll see you next week. Have a great day.